either dominant or recessive, right? So Mendel he's our dominant or recessive. That's what he taught us. And really what that means is he taught us all the either-ors. Either you are tall or you are short. Either you have freckles or you do not. There's only two choices for every gene. So we call that one gene that has two alleles. Right? Our choice was either tall or short for the pea plants. Those are the only two options. It turns out the vast majority of human inheritance doesn't work that way. Hair color, there's more than two choices. Eye color, there's more than two choices. Height, well, that's way more than two choices. IQ, way more than two choices. So most of the genes that we talk about have more than two alleles. So when we talk about anything that has more than two alleles, we call it non-Mendelian genetics because it violates all those rules that poor Gregor Mendel taught us. Besides having more than two potential alleles for any given gene, there are also some that are not dominant. So we have to throw all those rules of dominance out the window. They don't count anymore. So we have some that are not dominant. And just like we have some that aren't dominant, we have some that are not exclusively recessive. The best example of this that I give you is one that you should hopefully know quite well. Turns out First Hour didn't know much about it, and that surprised me a little bit. So I'm going to ask you guys what you know. What do you know about human blood types?
There's O, A, B, A, B, O negative, there are a lot of combinations. And then one of them can only give O can only
So we have four possibilities here. You can have type A blood. You can have type B blood. You could be type AB. You could be type O. Now, some of you mentioned these crazy things like positive and negative. We're just going to look at the A, AB, B, O part because the positive negative thing, to give you a comparison, that's a whole separate gene. So that would be like doing a 16 square Punnett square instead of just a 4 square Punnett square. That positive negative thing refers to what we call the rhesus factor. It's called the rhesus factor because we first discovered it in rhesus monkeys, so we named it for them, the RH factor. And in the rhesus factor, it basically determines whether or not you're going to have a particular kind of protein on the surface of your blood cell. So we'll ignore that for the moment and just focus on what type AB means. Lucky for you, as I get wider, I make a great door. Blood type is a phenotype. So it's what you see when you look at someone. What you actually see when you look at their blood are proteins on the surface of the blood. Now your blood cells, your red blood cells look like a little Smartie that you kind of squish, or a jelly donut that if you took and you like indented the top and the bottom. That's what your blood cells look like. Except on the surface of it, it has all these proteins sticking out. And genes just code for protein, right? Like that's all we're really doing here. So if you have genes that make type A blood, you have your blood cell that has one particular shape of protein that sticks out of the surface. And if you have type B blood, what sticks out of the surface is a different shaped protein. Here's the weird part. If you're AB, you have both shapes on the surface of your blood. And if you're type O, you just have a very simple, basic blood cell. Nothing sticking out, no curly cues, no squiggles. It's nice and plain. How many of you know your blood type? I found earlier it was surprisingly few people.
What's the most common blood type?
Want to say it differs among different ethnic groups, and I don't remember. For some reason, I feel like it's A, but I don't know why.
Do you want the least common? I think it's O negative.
O negative is a good thing to be. It's a very good thing to be.
Is it O the one that can give to all, but can only take from O?
So as we think about it, let's think about why the Red Cross, you aren't yet 16, but oh, just wait. Wait until your 16th birthday, and the first time you try and donate blood at Divine Child High School because you realize it will get you out of your least favorite class if you sign up for the correct time slot. All you have to do is bring a permission slip and you can bleed into a bag and miss a whole class, and if you're lucky, you'll pass out and you'll miss too. Hey, I know how it works. How much of giving blood is just pure benevolence on your part, and you're like, yeah, I'm just such a good person, I want to help the world. And the rest of you are like, I get out of theology. So when you do that, after you do that, you get added to the Red Cross mailing list, and they will call you every 6 months to remind you it's time to give blood. They call you more often if you are type O. They will call you a lot more often if you are type O. And the reason that they want blood is because, remember, we give that blood to other people who are, in accidents, need transfusions, or having surgery, whatever. You're donating. You are actually saving a life when you donate blood. Double bonus, you get out of class and you get to wear jeans. So they'll test your blood type, and they'll do this because basically what happens is, you know how your immune system works, right? Like foreign invader enters your body, white blood cell recognizes it, eats the foreign invader, goes on attack. If blood is put into a person that has the wrong shape of protein on it, so if you have the type A shape of protein and they put in type B, then your body goes on a wholesale attack. It's enough that can kill you. If they don't do dialysis and do so quickly, that will kill you. So if you ever get in an accident and you're like, oh, don't worry about it, I'm type whatever blood. Yeah, they're not going to believe you. They're going to double check at the hospital anyway. So don't worry if you don't know what it is, because they don't trust you. That's the kind of liability they can't handle.
So if you have AB and they give you A blood, like...
Life's good.
Really?
Yeah. If you're type AB and they give you type A, life's good. If you're type AB and they give you type B, life's still good. If you're type AB and they give you AB, life's fantastic. If you're type AB and they give you O, you're still alive. If you are type AB, you are what we call the universal recipient. You can take anybody's blood. You're like, yeah, look at me. I have no fear of bleeding out. There's no shortage of my blood type.
Wait, why do they accept O?
Because it doesn't have anything on it, so there's nothing to recognize as a foreign invader, right? But our poor friends who are type O, it's great to be O because you can save as many lives as you want every time you're willing to be like, bleed me out. But you can only get blood from other type O's. You're the universal donor, but you can only receive type O blood. Interestingly enough, there are some type O's that they will leave alone. My father, namely, is one of them. Why? Because poor Bob is the slowest bleeder ever. It takes them about an hour and a half to bleed out just half of that pint bag that they want. So it takes about 3 hours to get the amount of blood that they need from him. As opposed to me, when we go in and give blood together, I ask for the largest gauge needle. I got things to do, people. Busy woman. Largest gauge needle, it takes about 7.5 minutes to fill the bag. Lay there, bleed out, you're done. It's really fun though. You could see your heartbeat at first. It's fascinating. Donate blood, boys and girls. People need blood. It's helpful for some perspective of what we're going to see with the genotypes. Nope. So type A can take type A or O. Type B can take type B or O. But they can't take AB because they'll find the other antigen on the surface and attack it. So our AB friends totally luck out. Our O friends get to save the world. That's why they always want people who are type O. My type O friends, don't you feel like you can make a difference? Me, I'm A positive, so I'm pretty much useless, but I will bleed anyway. So if any of you need type A blood, I got it.
A's the most common, or O's the most common.
Is it? Among which races?
Just said what type of chart or Red Cross or
Yeah, I mean, it would be. Positive means you have a protein on the surface, negative means you don't. So positive is just presence, negative is absence.
Does that mean the ones that have the protein must have the positive, but they can also take the negative?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have a protein on the surface, like wouldn't it just be L?
It's a different protein. So you have multiple cell surface proteins. You have the one that determines blood type, and you have the rhesus factor protein. Now here's the thing about this. Those are all of our phenotypes. That's what we see when we look at the blood. But it's controlled by different alleles. And one of the weird non-Mendelian things is up here. It's staring at you, and you haven't noticed it yet. If you are type A, you get an allele that we call capital I superscript A. And if you are type B, you get capital I superscript B. If you are type AB blood, we already know your whole genotype. You're IA-IB. That's not Mendelian. What that means, instead of A being dominant to B, so it masks B's presence, or B being dominant to A, so it masks A's presence, instead, if you have those alleles, you express both of them. You use both copies, and they're both equally visible. Gregor Mendel would have had no way to predict that. It would have ended up in some weird trait blending like a medium-sized pea plant. Or one limb grows tall, one limb grows short. So that would have been kind of strange. Our friends who are type O have a recessive allele. O is recessive to A and B. So if you are type O, you are a genotype little I, little I. And that's the only way you can be a type O. To be type A, we can have two genotypes. You can be I capital A, or you can be I capital A, little I. If you are type B, you can be IB, little I, or IB, IB. So we'll take a look at the family upon which we can demonstrate that. October 4th, 1975. My family of origin was founded when Gail married Bob. And my mother knew when they were married that she was type A. As previously discussed, we know my dad from his Red Cross experiences, he's type O. They proceeded to have 3 daughters. all of whom are type A. Let's see if we can't reverse engineer a Punnett square here. My father being type O means that he must be little I, little I. My mother being type A means she must be 1IA, but we aren't sure about her other allele. There is a serious part of you that is tempted to do something right now. You want to say what my mom's other allele is, don't you? How many of you are like, duh, it's kind of obvious. It's got to be IA, doesn't it? But she had 3 kids and they were all type A. Just percentages? What's the other option for her other one? Little I? To provide positive evidence that she was a heterozygote, so IA little I, she would have had to have had a child who had what blood type? She would have had to have had a child that had O blood. I never would have allowed that to happen because I was firmly married to the idea of being the youngest. So there were no more coming. But I can tell you, we still don't know. Actually, all I'd have to do is ask my mom what her parents' blood types are. I think that my grandma was type A, but I don't know what my grandpa was. So, remains a mystery, friends. So you're telling me I can't determine that data? One of the other non-Mendelian traits that we some look at, and we are tempted to do things like that, is this one. You're about to learn something earth-shattering about my parents, Gail and Bob. My mom is a girl. I know you're shocked. And my dad, he's a boy. And they had 3 kids, and based on the names of their 3 kids, Sarah, Susan, and Elizabeth, one might venture to guess that all 3 of those children were all girls. So here's Mom on the side. We know the allele that Bob gave, right? That determines sex because he has 3 kids who are both homozygous for an X chromosome. Should we put a question mark there? Is it possible to say, well, we don't know his other allele? Do we know for a fact what his other allele is? Yeah, that's the only way he was a he. So we do actually know that that one was a Y. This for us is our definitive example of why we can't do what we were tempted to do on the other slide and assign my mom her other allele for blood type. Those are only probabilities. They are only ever probabilities, not birth orders, not guarantees, probabilities. That's how you end up with this one is now married and have 2 kids who are both XY. This one is now married and has, oh, I forgot Rob. Sorry, Rob. Has 3 that are XX, and in September will finally have her first XY. It's just a probability. It's 50-50 chances here. So don't get confused, because I hear a lot of really silly stuff out there in the great big world, like, well, so-and-so's had 5 girls, so girls must run in the family. How does gender run in the family? I've heard it. Not only have I heard it, I've heard it from people who purport to be intelligent. You're not going to say silly stuff like that when you get out to the world, are you? Joe, I can count on you to not say things like that, can't I? Okay, good. I'll check in on you. I could say nonsense like that. That whole blood type thing. Is it possible for these two parents to make a type O child? Prove it with a Punnett square. Support your argument now. Let's look at the one parent that we know for a fact what both of their alleles are. What parent do we know the genotype for? And we know one of the two alleles for the other parent. What is it? Let's leave the other one a question mark. No way that those parents are going to make a type O child. Not a chance. In the most stunning case of hospital neglect ever, 4 sets of parents arrived to deliver their children at the same time, and the nurses made the grave error of confusing the 4 infants. So before confessing their mistake, they've decided, since they have the blood types of both parents on file, and they can easily blood type the children, all babies are blood typed when they're born, they can easily blood type the children, they're going to see if they can't sort through this mess. Write down the potential children of our kids list for each set of parents. So determine which child can go with which parent. It could have been the parents for how many children on the side? Which 2? Our ABA parents. They could have been the parents for. And. Oh man, that one's pretty ugly. How about our ABAB parents? Oh man. And our type A parents? Dun dun dun, somebody's looking for a new job.